She was the kind of girl who could walk into a room and almost disappear. Not because she wanted to, but because the world was always so loud and overwhelming. In class, she would sit in the back corner, her notebook open, pencil ready, but her eyes often staring out the window, lost in thoughts that no one could see. She didn't talk much, and when she did, her voice was soft, almost shy, as if the words themselves were afraid to be heard. Her classmates didn't pay much attention to her. They were busy with their own lives, their own jokes and stories. But the teachers noticed her quietness, and in that quiet, they sensed something different. The school itself was an ordinary place. Brick walls, echoing hallways, and classrooms filled with the usual chatter and laughter. Students rushed to and from classes, teachers called out names, and the air was filled with a mixture of excitement and tension that only a school can have. She moved through it all like a shadow, always present but rarely noticed. Yet, there was a stillness about her that seemed unusual. It wasn't just that she was quiet. It was that she seemed to watch, to absorb, to notice things others didn't. Some teachers had tried to engage her in class discussions. They would ask her questions, hoping to spark a conversation, but she would often give small, careful answers. She never raised her hand impulsively like the other students. She never shouted out the answer without thinking. Instead, she considered the question, weighed the words in her mind, and then replied softly, sometimes surprising the teacher with the insight in her brief response. It was a rare moment, but those who witnessed it felt there was something special about her way of thinking. Outside of class, she kept to herself as well. Lunchtime was the hardest. The cafeteria was noisy, crowded, filled with groups of students laughing, teasing, and talking. She would usually sit at the far end of the room, a small table to herself, quietly eating while watching the world around her. She noticed how people moved, how some students tried too hard to be popular, and how others hid behind jokes to mask their insecurities. She had an understanding beyond her years, a way of observing people that was quiet but deep. And in that observation, she began to notice things about herself too. Music had always been a part of her life, though she hadn't shared it with anyone. At home, there was an old piano, worn and a little out of tune, but it was there. Sometimes she would sit at it after school, placing her small fingers on the keys, pressing them gently. The notes would fill the room, soft at first, hesitant, like the girl herself. But as she played, something inside her shifted. It was as if the piano allowed her thoughts and feelings to come alive. She didn't know the names of the notes or the rules of music theory. She only knew how it felt to press a key and hear a sound that seemed to belong to her alone. Her parents were supportive but busy. They knew she was different, but they didn't understand the depth of her connection to music. They thought it was a hobby, something to pass the time, not realizing that in those moments at the piano, she was discovering herself. Her room would be filled with the gentle melodies she created, sometimes singing softly along, other times just letting the sounds flow through her fingers. It was a private world, one she wasn't ready to share yet. At school, a few teachers began to notice the little things. How she could sit quietly in the music room, her eyes following the piano keys even when she wasn't playing. How she hummed softly to herself, matching notes with precision without anyone asking. It was subtle, almost invisible, but those who paid attention could see it. One teacher, in particular, started to wonder if there was more to her than met the eye. This teacher had seen many students come and go, some talented, some gifted, some with ordinary abilities. But there was a quiet intensity in this girl, a focus that was rare. Something told the teacher that if given a chance, she could surprise everyone. And so, a plan formed not out of malice but curiosity. The teacher decided to test her. Not a test in the usual sense, not a written exam or a quiz, but a way to see if her hidden talents could emerge. The teacher watched her in class, noticed the way she handled her assignments, the care she took with even the simplest tasks, and thought about the piano waiting in the music room. Could this quiet girl, who rarely spoke or drew attention to herself, have a talent that no one had yet discovered? The thought was exciting and a little nerve-wracking. Days went by, and the girl continued her routine, unaware that her life was about to change. She still sat quietly in class, still watched the world with careful eyes, still played her private melodies at home. But there was a sense of anticipation in the air, though she couldn't feel it yet. Sometimes, she would catch a teacher looking at her a little longer than usual, with a faint smile, as if sharing a secret with the universe. She didn't understand why, but it made her feel slightly uneasy and curious at the same time. Then came the day of the small plan test. The music room was quiet, sunlight streaming through the tall windows, dust particles floating lazily in the light. The piano sat in the corner, its keys gleaming softly. The teacher called her over, a gentle smile on their face. The girl felt her heart race. She had played the piano before, but never in front of anyone other than her family, and never with someone intentionally watching her to see what she could do. She approached the piano, her hands trembling slightly, and sat down. The teacher's eyes were on her, patient but expectant. She placed her fingers on the keys, hesitant at first. One note, two notes, simple sounds, soft and unsure. But then, something happened. Her fingers moved with a confidence that startled her. She didn't know she could play like this, not really. The notes came naturally, flowing together, creating a melody that was unexpected, beautiful, and full of life. The teacher's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and delight crossing their face. This was more than a small talent, it was something extraordinary. The girl didn't realize what she was doing. She only knew that the music was inside her, and now it was coming out. Her heart beat faster, not with fear, but with a sense of discovery. For the first time, she felt seen, not just as the quiet girl in the back of the class, but as someone with a gift, someone capable of something remarkable. The notes filled the room, echoing softly against the walls, and for a moment, the world outside seemed to disappear. There was only her, the piano, and the music. By the time she finished, the room was silent. The teacher's expression was full of awe. Others who had peeked in from the doorway could hardly believe what they had heard. A quiet, shy girl had just played a melody that sounded like it had been written by someone with years of training. But there was no training, only talent that had been waiting, hidden, until this moment. The teacher approached her slowly, careful not to break the spell. They spoke softly, praising her gift, but also asking gentle questions. How long had she been playing? How did she know the notes? The girl shrugged, almost embarrassed, and admitted that she had just felt the music inside her. From that day on, everything began to change. She was still the same quiet girl in many ways, still observant and careful, still thoughtful and reflective. But there was now a new energy around her, a sense that something important had been discovered. The teachers who had watched her knew that this was just the beginning. A hidden piano prodigy had been revealed, and the journey ahead promised to be extraordinary. And for the girl, there was a spark of excitement she had never felt before. A quiet thrill at the possibility of what her future could hold, and a growing sense of confidence in the gift that had always been hers, waiting patiently to be found. The next day, the girl returned to the music room, her heart still racing from the day before. She had been thinking about what had happened, replaying each note in her mind, wondering how she had played so confidently without really knowing what she was doing. The teacher greeted her with a warm smile, gesturing toward the piano. "Would you like to try something again?" they asked. She nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. This time, she approached the piano with a little more awareness of her own abilities, but still with the innocence and curiosity that had made her playing so unique. She sat down, fingers hovering above the keys. The teacher quietly left her to explore, standing at a distance, watching silently. Her first touch on the piano was tentative, as if she were testing the waters. Then she pressed a key, then another, and slowly, a melody began to form. It wasn't perfect by any traditional standard, but it was raw, emotional, and captivating. The music seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her, something she hadn't known existed until now. She was creating, discovering, and expressing all at the same time. The teacher could hardly believe what they were hearing. Each note carried intention, rhythm, and feeling, even though she had never formally studied music. It was more than talent. It was instinct, intuition, a connection to the piano that was natural and profound. The teacher realized that this was not just a skill to be taught. It was a gift that needed guidance, patience, and encouragement to flourish. They quietly jotted down notes, thinking of ways to help her grow without overwhelming her. Word began to spread quietly among the faculty. A few teachers who had overheard the music or seen her in the music room began to whisper about the girl with the hidden talent. There was a mix of amazement and curiosity. How had such a remarkable ability gone unnoticed for so long? It wasn't that she had been hiding it on purpose. She simply had never been pushed to show it. The right opportunity had revealed it. And now everyone was beginning to understand that her quiet nature masked something extraordinary. Meanwhile, the girl herself was beginning to notice the changes in the way people looked at her. In class, she still sat quietly, but now there was a subtle acknowledgement from some teachers, a spark in their eyes that made her feel different. Some of her classmates were curious, glancing her way, whispering among themselves, wondering why she seemed more confident and why the teachers paid her more attention. She didn't yet understand the attention she was receiving, but it felt both exciting and strange. It made her aware that something new had begun, something that might change her life in ways she couldn't yet imagine. Over the next few days, the music room became a place of discovery. She would spend hours at the piano, exploring sounds, rhythms, and melodies. Each time she played, she discovered something new about herself and about the instrument. The piano was no longer just an object. It was a companion, a friend that responded to her emotions and ideas. She began to experiment, trying faster sequences, softer notes, and unexpected combinations of keys. The music was no longer just melodies she had heard in her head. It was becoming her own language, her own way of speaking without words. The teacher occasionally sat with her, suggesting small exercises, gently guiding her hands or pointing out patterns in the music. But even with guidance, the girl's instinct took over. She had a natural sense of timing, an ear for harmony, and a creativity that surprised even the teacher. Each session revealed a new layer of talent, a new dimension to her musical mind. It was clear that this was not a passing interest. This was something deeply rooted within her, a part of who she was. Outside the music room, life continued as usual, but she began to carry a new sense of purpose. In the classroom, she noticed details more acutely, listened more carefully, and engaged just a little more with her peers. She wasn't seeking attention, but she felt different, as if discovering the piano had opened a door inside her that she hadn't known existed. It gave her confidence, even if it was subtle. Small smiles exchanged with teachers, nods of encouragement, and the quiet pride of mastering a difficult piece of music all contributed to this growing sense of self-assurance. The girl's family began to notice changes too. She played more often at home, sometimes sitting quietly in the evening, letting her fingers glide across the keys. The melodies were evolving, more complex, richer, and filled with emotion. Her parents were amazed, sometimes stopping to listen without saying a word, understanding that this was more than a hobby. They began to support her in small ways, making time for her to practice, encouraging her curiosity, and quietly celebrating the beauty of her talent. They didn't fully grasp the extent of her abilities yet, but they could see that something special was unfolding before their eyes. One afternoon, the teacher invited another instructor, a music specialist, to hear her play. The girl was nervous at first, unsure how another person would respond. But as soon as her fingers touched the keys, the music spoke for her. The specialist's eyes widened, a mixture of astonishment and admiration. They listened closely, nodding in appreciation, recognizing the rare instinctive talent that was unfolding. It became clear that her gift was something that could take her far beyond the walls of the school if nurtured properly. The girl, however, remained humble and unaware of the significance of what she was doing. She played because it felt right, because the music came from inside, not because she sought recognition. The day passed, and the girl returned to her usual routine, but the experience left a lasting impact. She realized that the world could see her in a new light, that her talent could connect her to others in ways she hadn't imagined. And yet, She remained herself, quiet, reflective, and thoughtful. She didn't need to boast or perform to feel validated. The music itself was enough, a private reward that gave her joy and a sense of identity. As the days turned into weeks, the girl's confidence continued to grow. She began to experiment with her own compositions, small pieces that captured her emotions and thoughts. She started keeping a notebook of melodies, sometimes humming them softly as she wrote them down. The music became a bridge between her inner world and the outside, a way to communicate without speaking, to express feelings she couldn't put into words. It was both liberating and comforting, a safe space where she could be fully herself. The teachers noticed the difference too. The one who had first tested her felt a quiet pride, knowing that their curiosity had uncovered something extraordinary. They continued to provide guidance, arranging practice times, and encouraging the girl to explore her gift further. But they were careful not to push too hard. They knew that talent, especially one so young and raw, needed patience and space to grow. The music room became a sanctuary, a place of discovery, creativity, and gentle encouragement. One day, during a brief break from practice, a classmate approached her quietly. "I heard you play yesterday," they said, their voice filled with curiosity and awe. "It sounded amazing. How do you do that?" The girl smiled softly, shrugging, unsure how to explain. "I just play what I feel," she said. It was simple, but it captured the essence of her connection to the piano. She didn't play for praise or recognition. She played because the music lived inside her, waiting to be heard. Word continued to spread slowly, and though she didn't seek attention, more people began to notice the quiet girl with the extraordinary talent. Teachers whispered among themselves, classmates watched with curiosity, and the school began to sense that something remarkable was happening. And all the while, she continued to play, explore, and grow, unaware of the journey she was embarking upon, but fully immersed in the joy and discovery of her music. Through it all, the girl remained humble, grounded, and deeply connected to the piano. Each note she played was a step in understanding herself, a small revelation of what she could do, and a reminder that talent, when nurtured with care and curiosity, could open doors to a future she had never imagined. The music was no longer just a secret. It was becoming her story, one note at a time. As the weeks passed, the girl's talent became more apparent not only to the teachers but to a few of her classmates who were drawn to the soft, enchanting music that seemed to float from the music room. Some days, she would arrive early and sit at the piano alone, letting her fingers wander across the keys, discovering new harmonies and rhythms. Other students would peek in, mesmerized by the melodies, and slowly a quiet fascination began to grow around her. She remained shy and humble, not seeking attention, but her music spoke louder than words ever could. The teacher who had first recognized her gift continued to guide her, offering small challenges and gentle advice. Sometimes it was just an exercise in fingering, sometimes a suggestion to play a particular scale or chord. But mostly, it was about encouraging her to trust her instincts and explore her creativity. The girl absorbed it all, learning at her own pace, and in return, her music became richer, more expressive, and deeply moving. She had an unusual ability to sense how notes worked together, how a sequence could build tension or release, and she experimented freely without fear of making mistakes. Her compositions began to reflect not only her skill but her emotions. She would play softly, almost like a whisper, when she was feeling thoughtful or melancholy. Other times, her fingers would dance across the keys with energy and joy, producing lively, uplifting melodies. Each piece seemed to capture a different part of her personality and her view of the world. The teacher noticed that she wasn't just playing what she heard in her mind. She was creating something entirely new, something uniquely hers. This realization made the teacher even more certain that her talent was extraordinary. Her family watched with quiet amazement. They could feel the depth of her talent, the way she lost herself in the music, the way it seemed to flow effortlessly from her fingers. They began to record her playing on rare occasions, though she remained modest and sometimes hesitant when anyone watched her. Music had always been her private sanctuary, a place where she could express herself freely, without judgment or expectation. Yet, the joy and pride her family felt encouraged her to continue exploring her gift. One day, the teacher decided it was time for her to play in front of a larger audience, though carefully and with gentle preparation. It wasn't a public concert yet, but a small gathering of teachers and a few selected students. The girl felt nervous at first, unsure how it would feel to share her music with more people. But as she sat at the piano, fingers poised above the keys, she took a deep breath and let herself become absorbed in the music. The melody that emerged was both delicate and powerful, full of emotion and subtle complexity. Those listening were captivated, some leaning forward in quiet awe, others with eyes wide, unable to speak as the notes filled the room. It was in moments like these that her talent became undeniable. She had always played beautifully, but now the audience could feel the depth of her connection to the piano. It wasn't just technical skill or practice. It was instinct, emotion, and creativity intertwined. The teachers whispered among themselves, nodding in agreement. She was a hidden prodigy, someone whose abilities far surpassed what anyone had expected. The girl herself felt a quiet satisfaction, a deep joy in sharing her music, even if she remained shy and reserved in her demeanor. Word of her talent began to reach beyond the music room. A few students began to seek her out, asking to watch her play, eager to understand how someone so quiet could produce such mesmerizing melodies. She welcomed a few of them, gently teaching and encouraging them, though always modestly. She didn't want attention, but she enjoyed sharing her passion in a small, intimate way. The music, after all, was a language she understood and wanted to use to connect with others, even if in a limited way. The teacher saw potential for her talent to grow even further. They began to plan ways to nurture her abilities more formally, considering options for music lessons outside school or special programs designed for gifted students. But they were careful to balance encouragement with patience. They knew that pushing too hard could overwhelm a young prodigy, and that her growth would be most meaningful if it came naturally and from her own desire. The girl responded best to gentle guidance, and each new piece she played was a reflection of her personal growth and exploration. At home, she began keeping a small journal of musical ideas, jotting down melodies she imagined during the day, sometimes tapping rhythms on the table, humming softly to herself, or sketching notes in abstract forms that represented sounds in her mind. This journal became a private record of her evolving talent, a place where she could explore new concepts and experiment freely. It was a reflection not only of her musical skills but of her inner world, her thoughts, feelings, and dreams that found voice through the piano. Her relationship with the piano deepened with each day. She developed a sensitivity to tone, tempo, and dynamics that surprised even her teacher. She could make the instrument sing softly, whisper a delicate phrase, or thunder with dramatic intensity, depending on her emotions. This ability to communicate feelings through music was rare, and those who witnessed it were struck by the depth and authenticity of her expression. It was no longer just notes on a page or random melodies. It was storytelling, emotion, and artistry all in one. The girl also began to notice her own growth. She felt more confident in herself, not necessarily in how others saw her, but in her understanding of her own abilities. She discovered that she could trust her instincts, that her intuition in music was strong, and that even mistakes could lead to unexpected and beautiful results. This understanding gave her a quiet strength and a sense of independence, knowing that her gift was something she could develop and explore on her own terms. One afternoon, during a particularly long session, she stumbled upon a new melody that surprised her. It was different from anything she had played before, complex, flowing, and full of emotion. She couldn't explain where it came from, only that it felt right. The teacher watched silently, realizing that this was a moment of true creativity, a sign that she was not just playing music but inventing it. The melody captured her feelings, her thoughts, and the depth of her imagination in a way that words could not. It was a moment of revelation, not just for her, but for anyone who could recognize the power of raw, untrained genius. In school, her quiet presence began to command a new kind of respect. Students who had once ignored her now observed her with curiosity and admiration. They were drawn not only to her music but to the calm confidence she exhibited. She remained humble, never flaunting her talent or seeking praise, but her authenticity and dedication earned her recognition. It was clear to everyone that she was different, and that her abilities were extraordinary. Yet she remained herself, a thoughtful, quiet girl with a love for music and a desire to express her inner world. Her family continued to support her quietly, understanding that this was a journey that required patience and care. They offered encouragement, sometimes asking her to play for them, and other times simply listening in silence, letting her express herself freely. They knew that her talent was something special, a rare gift that deserved nurturing and respect. The girl appreciated their support, feeling secure in the knowledge that she had a safe space to grow and explore her abilities. The teacher continued to encourage her to perform, first for small audiences, then for slightly larger groups. Each performance was a step forward, a way to build confidence and develop stage presence. Even if she remained naturally reserved, she learned how to focus, how to handle nervousness, and how to let the music flow without interference from self-doubt. With each successful performance, she grew stronger and more assured, discovering that sharing her music could be a source of joy, not just anxiety. As her skills developed, so did her understanding of the power of music. She realized that it could touch hearts, convey emotions, and create connections that words sometimes could not. She saw the impact her playing had on others, the way it could bring smiles, tears, or silent awe. It gave her a sense of purpose, a way to contribute something meaningful to the world around her. And yet, she remained grounded, always returning to the piano with the same quiet curiosity and love that had guided her from the beginning. By the end of this period, the girl had transformed in subtle but profound ways. She had discovered not only a remarkable talent but also a deeper sense of herself. The music had become a part of her identity, a lens through which she could understand the world and express her inner life. Her teachers, family, and even classmates recognized that she was extraordinary, but she herself remained humble, patient, and devoted to the journey ahead. The first notes that had revealed her hidden prodigy had opened a door to a world full of possibilities, and she stepped through it carefully, thoughtfully, and with a heart full of music. As the girl's talent continued to grow, her teachers began to take a more active role in helping her develop. They arranged extra practice sessions, introduced her to new techniques, and slowly started teaching her the fundamentals of music theory. She was curious but not overwhelmed. She absorbed the lessons with a natural ease, connecting the theory to what she felt at the piano. Each lesson was a discovery, a way to deepen her understanding and to make her playing even more expressive. It was a delicate balance, guiding her without taking away the instinctive magic in her music. At first, she focused on short exercises and simple pieces, learning the importance of scales, timing, and finger placement. But soon she began to integrate these lessons into her own creations. She experimented with harmonies, rhythm changes, and even improvisation. The music that came from her was not just technically correct. It was full of emotion, telling a story with every note. She was learning not just to play, but to communicate, to use the piano as a voice for her feelings and imagination. It was a journey of growth, both as a musician and as a person. Her family noticed the change in her as well. They saw her practicing diligently, her fingers moving with precision and confidence, her mind fully engaged in the music. At home, they began to make space for her to play freely, setting aside quiet hours and providing encouragement without pressure. They listened without interruption, letting her explore her melodies and emotions. Sometimes they would ask her to play a favorite piece, and other times they simply observed, understanding that the music was her personal expression. They felt proud and amazed at the depth of her ability, and they began to dream of the possibilities that lay ahead for her. Her classmates continued to be intrigued. Some would pause outside the music room, listening to the soft, flowing sounds, and marveling at the skill and emotion behind them. A few brave ones asked her to teach them small things, and she welcomed them gently, sharing her passion in small, patient ways. She wasn't interested in fame or recognition. but she found joy in helping others experience the beauty of music. Her quiet confidence began to inspire those around her, and even those who had been distant or indifferent started to appreciate her presence and her talent. The teacher began to introduce her to more complex pieces, encouraging her to try works by famous composers as well as modern music. Each new challenge was met with determination and curiosity. She would practice for hours, sometimes stumbling and sometimes excelling, but always learning and growing. Her understanding of music deepened, and with it, her ability to express nuanced emotions through her playing. She began to develop her own style, a combination of instinct, creativity, and learned technique. It was unique, unmistakably hers, and it continued to captivate everyone who heard it. The teacher also emphasized the importance of discipline and patience. They explained that talent alone was not enough. It required dedication, focus, and perseverance. The girl took this to heart, not as a burden, but as a way to unlock more of her potential. She approached each practice session with intention, working on small details, perfecting timing, and exploring new interpretations of melodies. The discipline strengthened her confidence and gave her a sense of accomplishment, showing her that effort and natural talent together could create something extraordinary. As her skill grew, the idea of performing outside the school became more appealing. Her teacher suggested small community events, informal recitals, or school concerts where she could share her music with a wider audience. The girl felt nervous but excited. She understood that this was a new step, a way to connect with people and to show the world what she could do. It wasn't about seeking approval. It was about letting the music speak and seeing how it could touch others. With careful preparation and encouragement, she gradually began to perform in front of small audiences, each time gaining more confidence and learning how to express herself fully. The experiences of performing were transformative. She discovered that music could evoke emotions in others: smiles, tears, quiet reflection, and awe. She felt a new sense of responsibility and pride, realizing that her talent had the power to impact people in ways she had never imagined. At the same time, she remained humble and focused on the joy of playing, never letting recognition overshadow the personal connection she had with the piano. Each performance became a lesson, a chance to grow not only as a musician, but as a communicator and storyteller. Her family, teachers, and even classmates began to support her more actively. They celebrated her successes quietly but meaningfully, providing encouragement and understanding. They recognized that her journey was not just about skill, but about emotional expression, personal growth, and the pursuit of a passion that was deeply her own. This support created a safe and nurturing environment, allowing her to explore her potential fully without fear or pressure. At home, she continued to create her own compositions. She would experiment with different moods, tempos, and dynamics, sometimes drawing inspiration from nature, her experiences, or her imagination. Her pieces became more complex, layered, and emotionally rich. She began to keep track of her favorite creations, occasionally performing them for family members or close friends who were invited to listen. Each new composition was a reflection of her evolving talent, her growing understanding of music, and her personal journey of self-expression. Her teacher also introduced her to recordings of professional pianists, explaining different styles and interpretations. The girl listened carefully, absorbing the nuances of expression, technique, and phrasing. She began to experiment with integrating elements of these styles into her own playing, while still maintaining her unique voice. It was a process of learning, adaptation, and creative exploration. She understood that the music she loved had a long history, and that by learning from others, she could grow while staying true to herself. The girl also faced moments of doubt and frustration. Some pieces were difficult, some techniques took time to master, and there were times when she felt her progress was slow. But she learned to persevere, understanding that growth required patience and effort. Each challenge became an opportunity to improve, and each mistake became a lesson. Her teacher encouraged this mindset, reminding her that even the greatest musicians had faced struggles and setbacks. This perspective gave her resilience and determination, reinforcing her commitment to music and to herself. As her confidence grew, so did her creativity. She began to compose longer, more intricate pieces, exploring themes, emotions, and stories through sound. She experimented with contrasting moods, delicate passages followed by powerful sequences, and unexpected harmonies. Her music became a reflection of her inner world, a way to express thoughts and feelings that words could not capture. She found immense satisfaction in creating something entirely her own, a personal expression that resonated deeply within her and, eventually, with those who listened. In school, her reputation as a hidden prodigy began to solidify. Teachers recognized her potential and carefully planned opportunities for her to develop further. Some suggested specialized music programs, competitions, or mentorships with professional musicians. The girl approached these suggestions with thoughtful consideration, weighing her readiness and her desire to grow at her own pace. She understood that her talent was precious, and she wanted to nurture it carefully, without rushing or losing the joy of discovery that had guided her from the beginning. Through it all, the girl remained humble, focused, and deeply connected to her music. She understood that talent was just the beginning, and that dedication, creativity, and emotional expression were equally important. She continued to play for herself, for her family, and for small audiences, cherishing each opportunity to explore her abilities and share her gift. Her music was no longer just a secret. It was becoming a part of her identity, a reflection of her heart, mind, and spirit. By the end of this period, she had grown significantly, both as a musician and as a person. She had learned discipline, patience, and the power of self-expression. She had experienced the joy of creating, performing, and connecting with others through her music. And she had discovered that her gift, once hidden and unnoticed, had the potential to open doors to new experiences, relationships, and opportunities. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a companion, a mentor, and a voice for her innermost thoughts and emotions. The girl understood that her journey was only beginning, and she embraced the path ahead with curiosity, courage, and a heart full of music. The girl's talent continued to flourish, and soon the time came for her to perform in front of a larger audience. It wasn't a huge concert or a professional stage yet, but it was significant. A school recital with students, teachers, and a few parents in attendance. She felt nervous, her stomach filled with butterflies, but also a quiet excitement. She had prepared carefully, practiced her piece over and over, and felt ready. As she walked onto the stage, her fingers brushed the keys lightly, and she took a deep breath, letting herself become one with the music. The moment her fingers touched the piano, the room seemed to hold its breath. The melody that emerged was gentle at first, delicate and careful, but gradually it grew, flowing with emotion, depth, and confidence. Each note told a story, expressing feelings she hadn't put into words, conveying joy, sorrow, wonder, and discovery. The audience sat in silence, captivated by the music, feeling its power without needing to understand exactly how it came from a quiet, unassuming girl in the corner. Some eyes glistened with emotion, others widened in astonishment, and a few whispered softly to each other in a W as the final notes faded. There was a moment of stillness, a pause where no one spoke, as if the audience was suspended in the magic of the music. Then, applause erupted, gentle at first, then growing into enthusiastic claps and cheers. The girl felt a mixture of relief, pride, and a quiet joy she had never experienced before. She had shared a piece of herself, her gift, and it had touched others. Her teachers smiled proudly, knowing that this was only the beginning of a journey that could take her far beyond the walls of her school. After the performance, people came to speak with her, offering praise and encouragement. Some of her classmates, who had never paid much attention to her before, now looked at her with admiration and curiosity. They asked questions about how she had learned to play, how she composed such melodies, and where she found her inspiration. She answered modestly, explaining that she simply followed what she felt in the music, that it came from inside her. Her humility and sincerity made people respect her even more. They could see that her talent was genuine, born not from seeking attention, but from a love for music and a desire to express herself. The experience of performing publicly changed something inside her. She realized that her music could connect people, convey emotions, and tell stories that words sometimes could not. It gave her confidence, not in a boastful way, but in the quiet assurance that she had something special to offer. She understood that her talent was not just a personal gift, but a way to touch others and to share a part of herself with the world. And yet, she remained grounded, returning to her practice with the same curiosity and joy that had always guided her. Her family celebrated quietly but meaningfully. They expressed their pride in ways that felt supportive rather than overwhelming, recognizing that her journey was ongoing and that her love for music was what mattered most. They continued to make space for her to practice, to explore, and to develop her skills at her own pace. The home remained a sanctuary, a place where she could create freely and safely, knowing she had the encouragement and understanding of those who mattered most. In school, the recognition of her talent continued to grow. Teachers began to recommend her for specialized programs, competitions, and mentorship opportunities. She approached these suggestions thoughtfully, understanding that each opportunity was a chance to grow, but also weighing her readiness and comfort. She did not rush herself. She wanted to ensure that each step she took was meaningful, that her passion remained genuine and unpressured. Her careful consideration reflected her maturity and the deep connection she had developed with her music. The girl also continued to compose her own pieces, each new creation reflecting her evolving understanding of music and her own inner world. She experimented with different moods, tempos, and styles, sometimes inspired by nature, sometimes by experiences or emotions she wanted to express. Her compositions became longer, more intricate, and filled with subtle details that conveyed the depth of her feelings. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It had become a medium through which she could communicate her thoughts, dreams, and emotions with clarity and beauty. Through these compositions, she began to develop a distinctive style, one that combined technical skill, creativity, and emotional depth. She learned how to shape melodies, create tension and release, and use dynamics to evoke powerful feelings. Her teacher provided guidance, but the girl's intuition and personal expression were at the heart of each piece. This combination of guidance and instinct allowed her music to grow naturally, becoming more expressive, confident, and authentic with each passing day. She also began to mentor a few younger students who were interested in learning piano. She shared her insights, techniques, and experiences, encouraging them to explore their own creativity while remaining humble and patient. This role gave her a new perspective, showing her the joy of helping others discover their own talents. It reinforced the understanding that music was not just about personal achievement, but also about sharing, teaching, and connecting with others. The girl found fulfillment in this, recognizing that her gift could inspire and guide others as well as herself. Despite her growing recognition, she remained focused on her personal journey. She continued to practice diligently, explore new ideas, and challenge herself with complex pieces. Each day was an opportunity to discover something new, to refine her skills, and to deepen her understanding of music. She balanced the excitement of external recognition with the quiet satisfaction of private exploration, ensuring that her love for music remained the guiding force in her life. Her teachers noticed her maturity and dedication, understanding that she was developing not only as a musician, but also as a thoughtful, reflective, and creative individual. They provided opportunities for growth, carefully planning experiences that would nurture her abilities without overwhelming her. They encouraged her to perform, to compose, and to experiment, always emphasizing the importance of patience, self-expression, and emotional connection. Their support helped her navigate the challenges of emerging talent, giving her the confidence to continue developing at her own pace. The girl began to dream more boldly about the future. She imagined performing on larger stages, composing music that could reach people far beyond her school, and sharing her gift with the world. She thought about the possibility of pursuing music professionally, knowing that her journey was only beginning and that there were countless opportunities to explore. Yet, even with these dreams, she remained grounded, focused on the present moment, and committed to the joy and discovery that music brought to her life each day. As her talent became more widely recognized, she also learned to handle the attention gracefully. She remained humble, understanding that recognition was a byproduct of her dedication, not the goal itself. She focused on the music, on creating, expressing, and connecting, rather than seeking applause or praise. This approach allowed her to grow naturally, maintaining the authenticity and passion that had always defined her playing. Her family continued to play a supportive role, providing encouragement, understanding, and space for her to explore her creativity. They celebrated her achievements quietly, reinforcing the importance of dedication, self-expression, and personal growth. Their support created a strong foundation, allowing her to take on new challenges and opportunities with confidence, knowing that she had a safe and loving environment in which to grow. The girl's journey culminated in a sense of accomplishment and anticipation. She had discovered her extraordinary talent, nurtured it with care and dedication, and shared it with others in ways that brought joy and inspiration. She had grown as a musician, as a person, and as a creative individual, learning the value of discipline, patience, and self-expression. And yet, she understood that this was only the beginning. There were countless experiences, performances, and compositions yet to come, each offering new lessons, discoveries, and opportunities for growth. In the quiet moments, when she sat at the piano alone, she reflected on how far she had come. From a shy, quiet girl who rarely spoke in class, she had become someone who could express her heart and soul through music, touch the lives of others, and inspire those around her. The piano had become a friend, a mentor, and a voice for her innermost thoughts. She understood that her gift was special, but it was the love, dedication, and joy she brought to her music that made it truly remarkable. The girl looked ahead with hope and determination, ready to embrace the future and the endless possibilities that awaited her. She knew that her journey would continue, filled with challenges, triumphs, and discoveries, but she was prepared to meet each step with the same quiet curiosity, patience, and passion that had guided her from the very beginning. Her first note had revealed a hidden piano prodigy, and now, with each melody she played, she continued to uncover the full extent of her extraordinary gift.